Lincoln's horse. When Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to Union General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia on April 9, 1865, joyous citizens decorated Lincoln's horse, Old Bob, with flags and led him triumphantly through the streets of Springfield. A week later, on April 14th, Lincoln was shot and died the next day. On May 4th, Old Bob was again decorated, this time in a black mourning blanket, and marched through Springfield for the last time as part of his former owner's funeral procession. Here, Old Bob stands in mourning garb in front of the family home on Jackson Street. Simple chores had important cultural significance for men in Lincoln's day. A neighbor reports that Lincoln kept his own horse, fed and curried it, fed and milked his own cow. It was customary for men of all stripes to care for horses, but for those from southern backgrounds, which in pre-Civil War Illinois was the majority, including Lincoln, milking was strictly women's work. And following the New England custom of men milking, Lincoln reflected a willingness to adopt Yankee attitudes that some of his southern neighbors found degrading. No one could fault him on cultural grounds, however, over horses. His bodyguard claimed Lincoln was passionately fond of fine horses. His opponents ridiculed his appearance in the saddle as being awkward, but Lincoln was apparently a skilled rider. He matched the horsemanship of dashing General George B. McClellan at troop reviews during the Civil War, much to the general's dismay. And years after Lincoln was dead, no less an expert on horsemanship than General Ulysses S. Grant proclaimed that Lincoln was indeed a fine horseman, having easily handled Grant's own mount, Cincinnati. Lincoln loved his horses well, so said Lincoln's next-door neighbor, James Gorley. Lincoln owned several horses over the years: Tom, Bell, Old Buck, and finally Robin, whom Lincoln nicknamed Old Bob to distinguish him from his son Robert, Young Bob. Old Buck and Old Bob in particular spent long hours trotting across many miles of Illinois prairie during the years when their owner was a circuit-riding lawyer. A fellow lawyer once described Lincoln riding to court behind his own horse, which was an indifferent raw-boned specimen. This was probably Old Buck, as others described Old Bob as a pretty horse, a bright and reddish brown. When Lincoln visited Springfield in 1836, his horse strayed or was stolen. It is not known if he got it back. He was still a resident of New Salem at the time.